Hey, what's going on, kiddos? So, in this lesson, we are going to start our introduction to probability. First, we are going to define what probability is. It's pretty straightforward. The probability of something is just the calculated likelihood that a given event will occur. Now, there are three main ways of kind of looking about solving for the probability of something, or three methods of determining them. Those three ways would be the empirical, which uses experimental observation. So this is like you taking data and then based on that data, calculating the likelihood that something will occur based on your results. There's also theoretical probabilities, which uses known elements of mathematics to solve for the probabilities of things. Things like we know that there are six sides on a dice, and so there's 1/6 of a chance for that to always happen. No, a coin has two sides, so there's always a 50-50 chance for it to be on either side. Those are just known properties, and so we can use that sort of stuff to also determine probabilities. And then last but not least, there's also subjective probabilities, which use assumptions to actually calculate different probabilities of events. These assumptions would be things like all the events or all the possible outcomes are equally likely, or they only come from this source, or things of that nature, which we'll look at more of later. Really, out in the real world, you're never just going to be using just one of these three. It'll always be a combination of the three. More often than not, you'll be taking data from some system and then using your knowledge of mathematics and assumptions to calculate, theoretical probabilities of things to occur, things of that nature. So really, it's not just cut and dry, one, two, or three. It is really a combination of all three out in the real world. Before we move on any farther, we need to get some important terms out of the way just so you know what we are talking about. So the first one is an experiment. This one's pretty straightforward. It's really just an activity with observable results. So any sort of thing that you could set up and observe the outcome of, that would be an experiment. Next, we have a sample space, which is the set of possible outcomes. And so an example of that would be like if you're rolling a dice, it has six sides, and so the set of possible outcomes would be 1 through 6. An event is a subset of a sample space, which just means a set of the possible outcomes. So with our dice example, rolling a 1 would be a subset of the sample space. And then last but not least, we have an outcome, which is the result of an experiment, which basically just an experiment is an activity with observable results. Whatever that result is, that is an outcome. And so for probabilities, you can actually express them as a fraction, decimal, or a percent. So an example of that with something simple like a coin flip, which is 50-50, you can express it as a fraction, so 1/2, a decimal, 0.5, or a percent, 50%. All three are equivalent. And so here is some of what the math will look like. So getting some terms out of the way, so that way when you see these later on, it won't be so confusing. So here, we are trying to express the probability of something. Oftentimes, really, you just need to know how many times that something can occur and the total number of outcomes that there really are. And so the notation we use for this is we have first, this right here, P of A, which is just the probability of A, just probability of some event A happening. So like probability of getting ahead, or probability of going to 6, or whatever. We have N sub A here, which is just the number of events that contain the outcome that we want. So let's say, rolling the dice, I'm trying to roll a 6, that can only happen one time. So N of A would be 1. And then here, N is just the total number of possible outcomes. If we're rolling our dice again, the total number of possible outcomes would be 6. So this here would be 6. And so here we express the probability of A, some event happening, is equal to the number of times that event can occur, divided by the total number of events possible. Easy peasy. So here in the next little section of notes, we're going to be discussing mainly how to find this here, the total number of possibilities, which is just basic counting methods. But that's going to be our next little set of notes.